It's fair to say we're seeing something of an open rebellion on the floor of the Senate this afternoon.
Very, very rare. I was watching the opening of this session, sort of expecting it, to go in. This is supposed to be the first of 4 days of hearings in the confirmation process for Brett Kavanaugh, who is Donald Trump's pick to be the next Supreme Court justice to replace the retiring Justice Anthony Kennedy. Instead, as you said, it got off to an extremely raucous start. And why? The Democrat minority on the Senate Judiciary Committee is basically saying they are lacking vast amounts of information, documents about this nominee's time working in George W. Bush's White House when he was both a White House, a counsel in that White House, and later a staff secretary. He was there for 5 years, a very long period. There are literally hundreds, tens of thousands of documents. Now, on Friday, we saw Donald Trump assert executive privilege in refusing to release some 100,000 documents related to Kavanaugh's time working with George W. Bush. And essentially, Democrats are fighting a very uphill battle to say this is unprecedented. We have a man who is going to potentially be nominated to serve one of the highest court in the land, and we are lacking very vital, crucial, potentially crucial information on a very large chunk of his career, in which he presumably made very important decisions, or decisions at least which might influence the debate and the tenor of the debate in this confirmation process. The Democrats are essentially calling foul on this whole process, saying we cannot do our jobs, our constitutional duty properly, unless we have the necessary documentation. They see this as blocking, they see this as obstruction, and just last night, another 42,000 documents were dumped by George Bush's lawyers on the committee hours before this hearing was set to open. You can imagine, I don't know how many pages you can read an hour, but the Democrats on this committee are basically saying we did not have time to even begin to get through reading any of those documents. If we're going to do our constitutional duty right in naming a judge to the highest court in this land, we need more time. And they're bringing up the point that with Barack Obama's pick, Merrick Garland, who the Republicans refused to have a hearing for a year. He never got onto the Supreme Court, never got a hearing. He says if they could obstruct and wait for an entire year in the case of Barack Obama's choice, surely they can wait a few more days or a week or so in order to give the committee time, the Democrats on the committee, the time they say they need to go through these documents.
So the stakes are very high, Doug. We can see at the moment from the live pictures behind you there that the hearing is continuing for the time being. But talk us through it. Why are the stakes so high? Why is this such a controversial decision?
Look, we always say it. Supreme Court justices, it's the highest court in the land. It's always a political battle. It's always dramatic. It's always partly political theater in Congress when a Supreme Court justice has these nomination hearings. This is especially tense and especially partisan because you have a sense right now where the court is in a position where it could be radically altered. Its ideological leanings could shift, because this isn't a case where you're having maybe a progressive justice who's going to replace another progressive justice, or a conservative justice about to replace another departing conservative justice. You have the justice that Kavanaugh would be replacing was a pivotal justice. He was called a swing justice, Anthony Kennedy. He sometimes voted progressive, sometimes liberal. It would dramatically alter the balance of the Supreme Court of the United States in favor of conservatives if his nomination, as is widely expected, were to go through. That's why you're having a lot of fight on the crucial issues in America, mostly the social issues, whether we're talking abortion and the critical Roe v. Wade 1973 landmark case legalizing abortion. That's up for grabs potentially in the Supreme Court at some point. Gun rights, affirmative action, environmental laws. You can go right down the list, voting rights, all of these crucial issues that drive to the heart of American society, and all of the laws that have been passed since really the civil rights era. For those who are trying to push back on this nomination, they see this as a crucial case, and they're not saying they necessarily want to vote him down, but they are saying that the issues are important enough and his views are perhaps not well known enough that they want to have the chance to get to know him better, and they want to have the documented evidence they need in order to make a constitutionally clear and lucid decision on his nomination.
Okay, thanks so much for that update, Doug. And we'll be following that hearing, of course, very closely here on France 24.